The US President Donald Trump has expressed frustration about a lack of progress on peace talks. Late last week, he signalled the US could walk away from efforts to broker an agreement. But in a post on his Truth social platform, Mr Trump has suggested both Russia and Ukraine will make a deal this week, adding both will then start to do big business with the United States of America and make a fortune. I'm joined now by Dr Sonia Mycak, Research Fellow in the Centre for European Studies at the Australian National University. Sonia Mycak, thank you for your time. Now, we know that both Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of breaching this temporary truce. I know you have family in Ukraine. They were told not to attend church services there because they didn't trust that this would be a true ceasefire. So did it mean anything? What was the point of it?
Well, the 30 hours has come and gone, and we continued to see artillery attacks and shelling across the borders of Ukraine and Russia and Belarus, and also along the front line, particularly in the east. We also continued to see drone attacks on civilian infrastructure. So, for example, there's footage of an apartment building destroyed in Kherson. So I think that this was nothing more than an attempt by Russia to create positive headlines, most probably in reaction to two things. Firstly, the wide coverage received of very brutal attacks in the last few days. The downtown area of Sumy on Palm Sunday, part of the Easter festivities, 35 people killed. A child's playground in Kryvyi Rih, children killed. Good Friday, attacks in Kharkiv. So I think that the Putin regime was trying to counteract those images that had been spread around the world, but also possibly reacting to the Trump administration statement that it may disengage. It's interesting, you mentioned that both sides accuse each other of violating the ceasefire, this 30-hour ceasefire. Ukraine immediately, or President Zelensky, immediately accepted the 30-hour ceasefire, but stated that in the event of Russia not adhering to this, then Ukraine will respond to defend itself, and that is what happened. You're absolutely right that there was no trust for this in Ukraine. You mentioned my family. I spoke to family members in Chernihiv, that's a northern city. The Chernihiv region borders both Belarus and Russia. And my cousin there told me that she will not be going to any church services. They have in fact been warned, been advised by the government not to attend any public gatherings because there was no trust that there would be a ceasefire, and that in fact the drone attacks on civilian infrastructure continued.
And tell me a bit more about Ukraine's leader Vladimir Zilinsky's reaction of these recent events.
Look, I think, Gemma, you are really correct to bring to light Zelensky's reaction. He immediately accepted the 30-hour ceasefire, but then counter-proposed with a 30-day ceasefire. Now, we need to keep in context the fact that 39 days ago, the United States proposed a ceasefire. Russia never accepted that, and in fact, 30 times since then has shelled energy infrastructure in Ukraine. That ceasefire was supposed to be precisely to stop the destruction of energy infrastructure. So Zelensky immediately counter proposed a 30-day ceasefire, saying that now we will see whether Russia truly wants to take a step towards peace or whether this has all just been a media stunt.
And so do you think it's likely to be agreed to?
I don't think so, no. I don't think that Russia has shown any signs that it wishes to de-escalate the attacks. As I said, we saw very brutal attacks in this Easter period, in this last week or two. And I think that even efforts on the part of the US are failing to secure anything. I think that, President Trump's behaviour, I think, is erratic at best. I think it's biased at worst. And I think, unfortunately, the United States has really lost credibility as a balanced negotiator. I think that the responses coming from the Trump administration really align themselves with Russian interests.
And let's talk more about that response from the US, that erratic behaviour, as you put it, because we had, talk of the US walking away from this, and then also talk of a deal this week and confidence in that. So what are we to believe?
I think that that's a perfect example, Gemma, you raise, of the mixed messages coming out of the Trump administration. On the one part, we're ready to walk away from this. I think President Trump recently said, I'm not a big fan of Zelensky, on the one hand, sort of saying, and also, again, laying blame on Ukraine. I mean, remembering that Ukraine did not begin this war, Ukraine didn't ask for this war, is a victim of a one-sided invasion. But then, on the other hand, a statement saying that, we really believe we'll reach something within a week. I don't think anyone believes that anything will be reached in a week. And again, I think the stumbling block here really is Russia.
And if not a week, but this quiet confidence of the US of getting results, what could we read into that? I mean, what leverage does the US have that it hasn't leaned into as yet with Russia? Are they likely to use that leverage?
Oh, well, there is a lot that the United States could do. And even economically, in terms of sanctions, there's still a long way that the US could go. We're not seeing evidence of that, though. I mean, I'm not an expert on the tariff situation. However, I do know that there have not been tariffs placed on Russia, whereas the Trump administration has placed tariffs on other countries. I think if there is any confidence at all, it's not to do with the role of the United States. It's possibly to do with outcomes from the Paris meetings that were undertaken, within the last week. And there were some positive developments, I think, there. And certainly Yermak, the advisor to Zelensky, he spoke publicly as soon as those meetings, that of course included major European partners, as soon as those meetings concluded, he spoke quite positively. And one of the things that was very interesting was that he actually said, well, we are working towards a full ceasefire. That's the first point. He called those meetings very productive brainstorming. That was the word that he used. And the other thing is that interestingly enough, he said we were all on the same information page. Now, I think that that's interesting because Zelensky had very recently, even publicly on an American network, said that he fears that the Trump administration is actually in a Russian disinformation space, and that is really the Trump administration is relying more and more on disinformation coming from Russia. And so for Yermak to say, well, the meetings in Paris, predominantly with European partners, showed that we are all in the same information space, I think that was a positive sign. And, possibly the Trump administration is taking some heart in that.